episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. I'll tell you what, I took a day or two off for the Passover holiday, and I feel like I've been fly fishing in the middle of nowhere in Alaska for the last decade, minus the relaxation. I feel completely out of sorts, completely not myself, completely disorganized, but we will forge ahead here. And there is breaking news today. Back in February, as we all know, if we're following this show and others, 13-year-old Maddie Soto disappeared. It prompted a statewide missing child alert. Officials confirming that her body was later found in rural Osceola County just days, I think it was 4 days after she was first reported missing. Stephan Sterns, who is the boyfriend of Maddie's mother, Jennifer Soto, he was, and it continues to be, the prime suspect today. He was supposed to appear in court. He did not. And later in the day, guess what? He was charged with murder. Here, break it all down on a historic day when it comes to this case. Timothy Jansen. He's a partner in the firm Jansen Davis. He has handled complex civil, administrative, and criminal litigation. He also spent 5 years as a federal prosecutor. And when we are doing the Adelson, all things Adelson, and Dan Markell, no one knows Tallahassee better than perhaps Monica Jordan. I think she might know it a little bit better. Monica, she is the president of Jordan Research and Consulting, one of the nation's most sought-after private investigators. She has handled more than 50 death penalty trials. She's worked with even worked with notorious female serial killer Eileen Wuornos with her post-conviction team. She is the infamous. Her story was told in the movie Monster, the infamous Florida female serial killer. And then, of course, Belkis Plata. She is an attorney out of Jacksonville, a champion of human and civil rights, working tirelessly to defend Jacksonville's most underserved and marginalized citizens, like my father. She was born in the Boogie Down Bronx. I always have to say that. So first and most obvious question, Tim Jansen, to you, how surprised or not surprised are you that Stephan Sterns is now charged with capital murder in this case?
Well, we weren't really surprised. We knew it was just a matter of time, going through the forensics, the computers, the timelines. We still don't have the autopsy. I don't believe the cause of death has been released. He was the last in custody. His statement to the police were complete lies. And he was the last one with her. And the computer, I believe, was found in a trash bin that he said he took her to school in. So his story didn't add up, and they took their time, and they had all those other charges. So we knew it was going to happen. We just didn't know how soon. The only other question is the wife going to be charged?
Yeah, and we're going to find out about that, I assume, in the coming weeks. Belkis, to you, you practice just across the top of the state there. This is obviously from Tallahassee, not Orlando, and this is obviously a big case statewide. When you heard that Stephan Sterns was just indicted by a grand jury, your reaction to that?
I mean, I expected that to happen. I think it was just a matter of time. I was surprised, however, that they have not made a decision yet on whether they're going to seek the death penalty. Mm-hmm. In Duval County, it's done kind of simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be left to be seen. They are considering it, but we just don't know yet if that's what they're going to be seeking.
And Monica Jordan, apologies as I take a sip of water. Sweet and salty. This is your world, Monica. Jails, bad people in jails, defending them. Do you think that this guy, Stephan Sterns, right now, he's got to be in protective custody, right, for his own safety and for the future and for a trial that is likely ahead of him?
Initially, I think he's in protective custody. What I noticed about his booking photo today is that he's in the turtle suit, which is the suicide protection suit. At least that's what it appeared for him to be in. So yeah, I would think he's going to be in protective custody. Child molesters, child porn, people in possession of child porn, and cops do not do well in the county jail. They have a 2-for-1 on this guy. They potentially could seek death under the child abuse and the child sexual battery, the capital child sexual battery, and or death. So it'll be interesting to see if they just use the sexual batteries as aggravators against him, or if they use that as a chance to get 2 death sentences against him.
By the way, there's a lot of breaking news today, not the least of which they arrested a 5th person in Oklahoma, so-called God's misfit. Well, there's a 5th misfit, a guy named Paul Grice, and we're doing a special show tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. on that with an amazing panel. We've got a criminal profiler, and if you guys didn't check it out, it's an amazing show, if I may say so myself. Jim Fuda is a hostage negotiator, was retired now for like 40 years in the Seattle area for King County. And we just did a Surviving My Biggest Case. He's going to be one of the guests tomorrow. Amazing background, amazing experience. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out Surviving My Biggest Case. It's under the video tab, not the live tab on our YouTube channel. And then tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern, and I'll mention this again, we've got Rachel Morin's, the father of her oldest child, coming back on. And it's hard to believe, but we've got 2 STS best guests, Tim Papa from the FBI and Doug McGregor, the geo profiler, who literally are unrelenting. They went back to the Mon Pa Trail themselves of their own free will without being paid to try to help solve this case. So they're all coming back on tomorrow night. And keep in mind, Doug McGregor lives in Ottawa, Canada, and he drove down this past weekend because he wants to help. So these aren't just best guests in the sense of being good on air. They are the best guests in the sense of doing everything they can above and beyond to try to help people. So I was very, I was taken aback when I heard that they are doing all this extra work. Another person who's doing extra work real quick, the COE, she never stops working. Before going on air, Tim Jansen was witness to this. Now, when I look at this graphic, and I love the COE, I am looking inside. You fixed it already, COE. You fixed it. She had it totally different. She had the date on top and the guest underneath, and it looked like the boxes were wrong, but she already fixed it. Anyway, I can't make fun of her now, but this is the book tour. Look at this. May 6th, Miami Beach. May 16th, Boston. And I'll put this on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. In New York City, you've got CBS's Jim Axelrod, who you very likely know from 48 Hours. He is often the reporter on that show. May 21st, Toronto, Ruth Markel will be there. June 6th, both these people will be there. And hopefully Belkis Plata too, but Tim Jansen and Monica will be the guests of honor. I just made Monica a guest of honor. She'll be there with her handsome husband, and hopefully Belkis Plata will be there. But anyway, I brought this up actually not to promote the book tour, but the COE had a cockamamie graphic that she has fixed. So thank you, COE. Let's take a look. By the way, this was look at this. Jimmy McNutty here says the guests today are all stars with regards to their office backgrounds. Beautiful offices, not just great guests, but great office backgrounds. So glad to see Monica back. There you go. And welcome to everyone who's been watching the Chad Daybell trial on channel number 2. So without further ado, this is the state attorney here, and he spoke earlier today, and I'm going to play this. We'll watch it together. This is an edited version of a 16-minute press conference. COE put this into 4 minutes. Kick back, and let's watch together.
Today, the Kissimmee Police Chief and myself are here to provide an update on the death investigation on 13-year-old Madeline Soto, who was reported missing back on February 26th of this year and discovered dead 4 days later. I know the community and the media have been anxious for us to give an update on this case, and this is an opportunity for us to do that. For the last 7 weeks, 7.5 weeks actually, The Kissimmee Police Department and my office have been working closely to go over every piece of evidence that we could gather in this case. It was a voluminous and a lot of evidence to get through during that time, but we were successful in getting through it and making sure that we were able to provide the best case we could. Today, we're announcing that Stephan Sterns has been indicted by the grand jury on first-degree murder for the killing of Madeline Soto. We presented the case to the grand jury. They returned an indictment earlier today. There has been some questions as related to the length of investigation. I just want to let you know again that my office and the Kissimmee Police Department have been working vigilantly in making sure that we had every opportunity to get every piece of evidence that we could. I want to thank the Kissimmee Police Department and their tireless efforts. They've done an amazing job in the heavy lift that we've asked them to do, as well as the prosecutors that have been assigned to this case and making sure that we got every piece of evidence reviewed and gathered in this case. While death investigations usually take around 5 to 6 weeks or longer, we were able to get this one done relatively quickly and get the case to the front of the grand jury, like I said earlier today, to return the indictment against Mr. Stephan Sterns. The death penalty in this case, we have not decided to what decision we're going to make in that case. We're going to continue those discussions going forward, and we'll let you know again when we make that decision as to whether we're going to seek the death penalty in this case. I want to thank the grand jury for their hard work and their efforts in making sure that we're making this first step in seeking justice for Madeline Soto, for her family, and so the community can have closure in this case.
I want to thank the investigators and the other agencies that assisted us in uncovering the evidence to move forward with this case. We know this case has gained significant public attention because Madeline had just celebrated her 13th birthday and was just a child. The evidence shows an individual that was entrusted to keep Madeline safe made calculated moves to dispose Madeline's belongings and place her body in a wooded area before she was ever reported missing. For the 4 days following her disappearance, the entire community was actively looking to find Madeline safe and alive. Tragically, on March 1st, Madeline's remains were found. Our detectives have worked tirelessly to piece together the events leading up to Madeline's disappearance and death. With the collaboration of the state's attorney's office, we prepared the case for the grand jury that was heard today. The grand jury determined that our department secured enough evidence to obtain a first-degree murder indictment. We appreciate each grand jury member for their careful consideration.
Again, all questions about the facts of the case are not subject to disclosure because of public records laws at this time. Once his attorney participates in discovery, then you can make public records requests through your normal channels as you do in other cases. At this time, the only person being charged is Stephan Sterns. And again, this is not over. There is an ongoing investigation to uncover more evidence, and therefore we can't comment. There's going to be the same response on any question about the facts of the case.
And there you have it. This went on for a while, like 16 plus minutes, where he just could not answer any questions. He works in the homicide office at the SAO, at the state attorney's office. Of course, that was the Kissimmee police chief, and the first person that everyone was complimenting on his bow tie, that was State Attorney Andrew Bain. Belkis, to you, just from this short press conference, and that was really everything. You just saw it there, thanks to the COE. Did anything stand out to you? I know you already mentioned the death penalty not being on the table at the moment, having not been announced. Anything else?
I mean, I think, the public has a lot of questions about the mom. I think everyone wants to know what's going on with the mom's investigation. Like they said, they can't answer those questions yet, but he did make it, evident that the investigation is ongoing. So we don't know what else is going to come out, but I imagine something will be coming out once they're done with their investigation.
Monica Jordan, I saw you watching very carefully and closely with that intimidating look of yours. What did you glean from that press conference? And are you surprised, like Belkis, that they have not made a decision regarding death penalty yet?
I am a little surprised because he certainly meets all the criteria just based on the charges where we're at right now. it's just jumping ahead a little bit. It seems like to me they obtained a ton of information from his electronic devices, and that looks like to me where maybe some of these additional 12 counts of sexual battery and somebody in familial custodial authority, which means like a family member or babysitter or somebody that's controlling the child. It just seems like to me the phone may have told on himself, and if he was videoing himself, then that may be where the additional child porn charges come from. But I always wonder, where's the mom? How does she know? Because, Tim and I haven't had cases like this together, but I've had cases where the mom knows, but is kind of turning a blind eye. And I hope to God this mother was not doing that to her daughter or allowing this to happen to her daughter.
There's so much suspicion surrounding the mother. Apparently, it was okay for Stephan Sterns, according to reports, that he be allowed to sleep in bed with Madeline Soto. But there are a lot of people. Monica, let me just ask you a broader question. Is there a more heinous crime than this when you kill a child after sexually assaulting them? Is this as bad as it gets, in your opinion?
Well, I've seen worse, but this is up there. This is really bad. When you see children being sexually abused and it being documented and recorded and sold, and then then you bury them alive, or there's always worse, but this is really, really bad. These are terrible facts as they are being presented to us. Of course, everything has the government slant on it today. It hasn't been looked at from anybody on the defense side. Nobody from the defense is at the grand jury saying, hey, wait, no, listen to this. So this is going to be the most slanted, government-leaning presentation that we'll ever see. But if he was dumb enough to put this on his phone, Tim has heard me tell clients a million times, I don't care what you're really saying. You can't beat the science. And if it's his face doing sexual things to this little girl, he has told on himself in the worst possible way. And there's really, other than putting together either an incompetence issue or a lot of mitigation, he's facing a really strong prosecution against him. If the evidence shows it's him on the videos or in the pictures or videos of Madeline on his phone.
By the way, the COE, speaking of video, is going to queue up. There's body cam footage that was released a couple of days ago of Stephan Sterns being transported. He had some interesting things to say about jail. We'll get to that in a little while. But IGG rocks here. Back to Belkey's, and then we'll circle back to Tim. But Belkey's, my heart goes out to those on the grand jury who must have taken in a lot of tough information. Thank you, grand jury. This is one of the things in our country that makes it great, is that there's a charging sheet right there for Stephan Sterns. Is that the justice system works this way, but a lot of people, you see another side of it that most of us, including myself, don't. Can you just kind of pull back the proverbial curtain when it comes to the grand jury? What did they have to go through? How long was this process? And how did they ultimately come to this conclusion?
Sure. So the grand juries are used for, normally for indictments on first-degree murder cases. The state of Florida doesn't just file an information, is what we call it, a charging document. They have to seek that from the grand jury. And so a grand jury is just regular people who would have been on a regular jury, and instead they are serving as a jurist on this grand jury. It normally lasts about 12 months, and they are presented cases, and they only get one side of the story. And so they're in a closed room. It's secluded. No one knows who these individuals are except the prosecutors who are bringing the case before them. They can call witnesses, detectives, present information. There is no cross-examination. So to Monica's point, this is really just the state presenting, their information without anyone questioning it or being able to poke holes in it or anything like that. And they hear all that information. And then the question is there enough here to indict this individual for this offense? And then that concludes their service. Once that's done, the state of Florida files, their indictment, and now it's up to them to proceed on the case, whether they're going to decide to just seek the maximum, which is mandatory life on this offense, or seek the death penalty.
A lot of comments like this, much needed right now. May Maddie be resting in peace. This is Maddie's biological father. These photos courtesy of Mind of Monsters. Thank you to her. Mind of Monsters, who's a friend of the show, and she's actually trying to help us right now. I was trying to get in touch with her before the show. She's working on getting something together for the Ellen Greenberg case, where there has not been an investigation at all. If you've been following it since 2011, a case that was never investigated after a young school teacher, 27 years old in 2011, is stabbed 20 times, 10 to the back of the head and neck, and 2 of those an independent autopsy showing were post-mortem, meaning after she died, 2 of the stab wounds, and it was ruled a suicide. So there's, as you just heard, Monica Jordan. Monica, does anything, before I get to Tim, I always ask the law enforcement officers, the police officers, former FBI agents, does anything surprise you? Does anything surprise you when it comes to the criminal mind in this world, Monica? Are there cases that still upset you, or are you pretty much immune and have seen everything at this point?
I've seen a lot, but I will tell you, having sex with children, regardless of, my personal opinion about it, they're really tough cases to defend, because I can't think of one reason other than a mental health component that you could rationalize to a jury. Like, how do you rationalize it's okay to have sex with a child? I mean, defense attorneys can rationalize killing somebody that's an intruder, killing a bank robber, killing somebody in a fit of passion. I can't really come up with any circumstance that would justify having sex with a child. Those are really terrible cases.
Tim Jansen, have you ever defended a pedophile, Tim? Is it a case you would take on, and how do you do this?
Well, there are a lot of definitions of a pedophile.
Yeah.
Have I had cases where the allegation was child molestation? Yes. Are they good cases to take? No. Sometimes you get in on the case and you don't realize it's a child, and then you're in the case, and then evidence, and they supersede the indictment, and what started off as abuse, physical abuse, and turned into child abuse, sexual abuse. I'm wondering in this case if the state attorney is going to wait until he gets a lawyer. Tell the lawyer, okay, here's the deal. We'll take the death penalty off the table if you give us the information about the wife. We'll consider giving you life instead of death if you give us a proffer about the wife's involvement. And that could be a way they want to get 2 for 1. I don't know how often they get the death penalty over in Jacksonville. This seems like a case that would merit it. I don't know about the jury pool, and this maybe Belka can tell us, but you would think you'd want to get the wife also and cut a deal, possibly cut a deal for life for both of them and spare a trial.
By the way, there's been some confusion about whether it's a wife or a girlfriend. Officially, from what I heard, it's a girlfriend. Belkis, I guess the same question to you. I'm looking at these comments. This sick SOB, let me put up the photo of Stephan Sterns here, obviously talking about this guy. This sick SOB, I can't even look at him. The bad vibes are too much. Poor Maddie had to look at that face. Shark eyes for sure, dead shark eyes. It's your job, obviously, to defend those, and sometimes those people have committed the worst of crimes, Belkis. But how do you defend this? This is, like Monica just said and Tim just said, basically like going up and down escalator. It's going to be hard to get anywhere. How would you approach something like this?
Sure. So I have represented dozens of people charged with capital sexual battery. I've gone to trial on them. They are not easy to defend by any means. People come in with a preconceived notion. You hear sexual battery, child, automatically this person is guilty without really getting due process. And that's difficult because our system has to work regardless of the allegations, regardless of the charge, regardless who's on trial. There is a process that has to be followed. And so when we're defending people, we're defending the Constitution, we're defending, any person who could potentially be in the situation. We're just making sure everyone followed all of the rules to get us to this point. In this particular case, if this is my client, and in fact, the state has what they claim they have, it's really about trying to come to some type of resolution. He's probably getting life in prison no matter how you slice this. It's probably going to be agreeing to a life sentence to avoid the death penalty. Because you have a child victim. Most jurors are parents, or have nieces or nephews or whatever. And so a case like this is going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to overcome. And so it's really about, preserving your client's life in the event that they're seeking the death penalty, which I imagine may come, but it also may be a negotiation tactic. It may be that they want the mom and they don't have enough. Like, we just don't know that yet.
Yeah. I mean, Tim Jansen, in a way, it's kind of a presumption. People have said this on my show, that there's now, with this intense media scrutiny, not just with traditional media, but podcasts like this, Twitter, all these other social media outlets, there is sort of a presumption of guilt now in this country. I mean, is that something that you can overcome? I mean, I guess, how would you even begin when you look at the comments here? Every comment is, this guy's a piece of crap. This guy's got these shark eyes. People just immediately assume 100% guilty. I have to be honest, I'm one of those people. I'm guilty of that. But how would you even begin, Tim?
It's not easy. You're sitting there, the juror, the venire is all good, and then the judge reads the charges. And then you see people's faces drop, and then you see them look at your client, and heck, half of them look at you like that you're the piece of shit too, Yeah. It's tough. Nobody wants to sit on a jury like that. And it's like they want to it feels like they're getting justice by sitting on that jury. And then when you read the facts, what happened, these are hard cases. And I've won some and lost some. They're not good. Depending on the age of the child, you have to take a deposition of the child. And that's a difficult thing because you're representing your client. You got to give a vigorous defense because no one's above the law, no one's below the law. And the process has to be done. And so the child has to go through a depo if they're old enough. And depending on the age, you might have to videotape it so the court can make sure that you didn't do anything inappropriate. But they're hard cases and not cases that any defense lawyer likes to take. But when you take your oath that you're going to represent individuals, you do it, and you do it the best you can legally and ethically.
Well said, Tim. Coco says, meanwhile, as you have to climb this uphill battle defending this guy, it's indefensible, just a sick monster. None of this is okay. He's a pig and a complete monster. Minds already are made up. Then you've got justice for Maddie Soto here. A different Kathy K. Cool than Katie Cool Lady that we usually have. Monica Jordan, the queen of investigators here, the matriarch of all investigators. You usually work for the defense. Let's say you were hired by the state, just hypothetically speaking. There's so much questioning and questions about Jennifer Soto, the mother of this young girl. Some people even think that maybe she's checked herself into a mental hospital, and that's why, no one's heard from her. No one seems to know what's going on. If you had to investigate, what is the state doing right now to try to get to the bottom of this, to find out if she had some sort of involvement?
Well, the government would never hire me because I only do defense work and I've never been in law enforcement.
That's why I said hypothetical.
But I think they're going through every piece of electronic device. The forensic evidence and the digital evidence is so, is so important. So I think there's that. And I think that we all recognize that we're probably videotaped video surveilled about 75 times in a day, especially in a major city like Orlando or Kissimmee. Our license plates are being read. They're going through all of that electronic data to see where she was, if she was there, if they were communicating between each other. They're interviewing witnesses, teachers, anybody that they can lay their hands on that may offer additional information. I agree with Tim completely in the fact that if they don't have enough for him, they're going to go after her, and there'll be a who can tell on each other to cut themselves a life resolution. I agree with Belkis, and if this was a case that the three of us had been brought in on, and the facts and the evidence was as bad as it's been presented by the government side and through the grand jury and through the media, we would all be, where do we sign to resolve this with a reasonable plea? Because the more the case goes on through the discovery process, the more gets out, and the harder it becomes to try and overcome getting up the downside of the up escalator.
Nikki here, Bachmeyer. Did you hear that another suspect? Yes, his name is Paul Grice, arrested in the Jillian Kelly, Veronica Butler case. And other 2 mothers were murdered for no reason over a custody case. And COE let me know. This is Maddie's biological father. Let's play this sound and we'll continue on. This is the father. This was obviously after he found out about her demise. Here we go.
Daughter ever indicate that something was going on in that house?
Not to me, no.
What did you think of Stephan Sterns?
I had interacted with him on Instagram a couple of times loosely, just kind of seeing if he gave me the ick or if he seemed okay. And as far as I was interpreting his demeanor, he seemed like a warm, interested, but like not responsive very often person.
What do you think of him now?
I don't want to say that on camera. I can't communicate to you. Every father knows what I'm thinking right now.
Belkis, I mean, I hate to obviously kick someone when they're down, but those were bad instincts on his part, not thinking much of it. And look, these guys could be very cunning. Just curious what you made of that soundbite yourself.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 2020. Maybe there, were signs. Maybe there were not. I heard that they, just like you mentioned earlier, that Stephan was allowed to sleep in the bed with Maddie. I also heard they lived in like a 1-bedroom apartment. So you have 3 people sharing a room is an issue within itself. You have a young girl, she's now 13. And so you're having her sleep in a room with a male. Like, I don't know what all dad knew. Or that, I mean, obviously probably he could not have controlled what was happening in that household. But, he may just not, he said he was not very responsive. It may have been so much so that he really wasn't able to get a really good interpretation of this guy.
Ned Smith, what does this mean? You just became a YouTube member. You've been here for 73 years. You just became a member. How dare you? But we're happy to have you. If you've been here as long as Ned Smith, you better already be a member. I forgive you, Ned. Don't ever do that again. Tim Jansen. So when you listen to Andrew Bain, the state attorney for this area, he says that they've been working together with the Kissimmee police and other law enforcement for 7.5 weeks. Is that a long time, or does that sound just about right for a case of this magnitude to put together the grand jury and to ultimately indict him for murder? There was a lot of weeks going by where people were saying, how come this guy hasn't been charged? How come this guy hasn't been charged? Just curious if this is 7 weeks, this time frame sounds right to you.
Well, it's not like we have a who did it, right? We know he was there. The child was with him recently. They've closed the target area, who the suspects are. They found the forensics. It's a matter of getting the data that implicate him in the sexual aspect. And an investigator is going to say, okay, if he's sexually abusing this child, he's more than likely involved in the murder of this child. If he's doing what he was doing, which we see, child pornography, filming it, there's no limits to what he will do to this child. He is our main suspect. The question is whether the wife. Now, they probably already know the cause of death, and they're just not releasing it. They want to double check and triple check. Maybe they're trying to find the murder weapon. They haven't found it yet. They don't want to release that. But I don't think it's unusual. That office is probably a pretty good size office. It's not like a rural office. And they've probably got experienced investigators. And they've got FDLE probably there that can do forensics. So I don't think it's too quick. I don't think it's too long. 7.5 weeks, that's 2 months.
Yep. That's, the feeling I get myself, in the case with the God's Misfits in Oklahoma. That's kind of love that name in a sick way. That was about 2 weeks. And they brought these charges. So I guess it just depends, of course, on the amount of evidence and all of these other mitigating factors. Jenny Price, to you, Monica, weird question, but is there any word if there are other kids or if he sold or disseminated the images? We don't know that, but Monica, how do we find out if this wasn't something bigger, a conspiracy where he was either doing this to other children and or taking what he had and distributing it, which is probably a very good chance that is what he was doing.
I believe, well, first of all, I believe that the charges are coming from stuff they found on his either iPad, laptop, phone, any kind of electronic devices. In those situations, even if they're not creating the content or the dirty movies with these children, they're sharing information through these different applications. And in other cases that I've dealt with child pornography, I have not seen them be bought and sold. It's like a share, like they're just sharing. And so when people ask, was he selling the photos? Possibly. I mean, possibly, but he's going to have to sell it on some dark web, or he's not selling it on OnlyFans because obviously that would be reported. You're not putting it on Instagram or Facebook because you'd be shut down. So if he's doing something nefarious like that with these images of this child or sharing information, these images from other children, he's doing it on the dark web, but they will absolutely figure that out. Law enforcement has a better way of, I always tell people, please stop taking nude pictures of yourself, because God forbid if you're in trouble and they go through your phone, they're going to find that. And that's always my biggest fear, is that, the phones tell on, you tell on yourself primarily. I'm sure Belkis has had the same situation, you have a great case, but then they get the phone and the client has told on themselves by what they've kept on the phone.
By the way, my heart goes out to Ned Smith. She says that her weed eater broke today and I need to be nice to her, and that her membership just simply ran out. So, Ned, my condolences about your weed eater. Belkis, some good questions in here. Back to being serious from Nikki Backmeyer again, Mayor. Will they ever tell us the cause of death? Let's just break this up. So, obviously, the medical examiner had to perform, a pathologist had to perform an autopsy. There are very strict rules in Florida. I assume that the state attorney's office has information, but that's information that we will not see till at least trial. Is that right?
So it's going to depend. Like the state attorney was saying, they're not releasing anything until the defendant's attorney files a notice of discovery, starts participating in discovery, and then they can, request all the records and things. I imagine most of it will be highly redacted. So we may not be able to see it and read it. It will come out. It's a public courtroom, and so the information will come out, and we'll know exactly what happened. If this goes to trial, the medical examiner will have to testify. And so we will know at some point. We just don't know when that's going to be.
Tim Jansen, I know you're muting. I failed to ask you. I know Windsor had his yearly checkup today. How did that go? His lungs sound good, Tim.
He's a healthy 36.6 pounds. He was a little nervous, but he's fine. And Joel, going back to your last question, why did it take only 2 weeks in Oklahoma?
Yes.
Remember, those people were out of custody. They're dangerous to the community. This man was arrested with the child porn, so they had plenty of extra time to make the case and not put the public at risk.
Good point. So I originally had actually put this panel together because Stephan Sterns was set to appear in court this morning, not related to this. It was just an appearance, but once again, he waived that appearance. This is, I think, the third time that he's done that. Tim Jansen, What is going on here? And then I'd like to get Belkey's input. This guy is literally dodging any kind of show of face in court. I guess he's got the constitutional right. You don't usually see it used this way. But again, this guy was a no-show this morning. How come?
He doesn't want to come. He could act crazy. He said, I'm not coming. He can get in a fetal position. They're not going to drag him in court. It's not a necessary court appointment for him to show up. Maybe it's trial or a pretrial or a docket sounding. But you can say, I'm not coming. What are they going to do? He's already in custody. If you have somebody out of custody and doesn't come to court, you put him in custody. But, everybody's comparing it to President Trump, right? He has to come to court. Well, New York has this crazy law that you have to appear. But in Florida, I've had plenty of clients sitting in court and they said, he ain't coming. He said he's not coming today. And it wasn't a trial, but it was like a case management and he didn't come. So yeah. I've seen both.
This happened with Adam Montgomery, with Harmony Montgomery, convicted of murdering his daughter, didn't show in court, I think, basically the entire time. The COE here, by the way, COE, I'd love to get that transport vid, but a jury trial, Belkey's, and you said this when you were on the show, you said there's no way, because this trial was set, I think, for May. You said there's no way it would happen. Will it even happen in August now? A trial date has been set for August 19th, 2024. Arraignment is set for Monday, April 29th. That's this Monday. I'd be curious. Does he appear for that arraignment, Belkey's? And is this trial going to happen in August of this year?
Yeah, so he should definitely be appearing to be arraigned on his charges. Every county is different. In Duval County, we're required to present our clients at arraignment. We can waive appearances after that. But 9 times out of 10, if they're in custody, they're coming. Like, the judge wants to see their face because he or she also wants to make sure that the client knows what's going on. Your other question was a jury trial in August. Absolutely not. If he has competent counsel, there's magnitude in that short period of time. Even if he's your own client, your only client. I don't think either side could be ready to try this case in that period of time. It's required. They have to set a date. There are timelines they have to abide by until the time that the defense waives speedy trial, and I imagine that's going to be forthcoming.
La Mesa here with a nice comment, and Monica, to you, Judge Keith Karsten is the guy who was presiding over this morning's hearing, and the defense came in and said, look, we are not, this is before the news of the indictment. This is just this morning, and said prior to even getting that news that the defense was not sufficiently prepared to move forward with a trial based on the sex assault charges, and the judge granted the defense this motion. The state had no objections. Is this what Belkey's is saying, that they've got to put it on the calendar, but this is very typical where the defense is saying, look, we just need more time, and the judge simply granted that?
Yeah, she's absolutely right. I can't think of a better ineffective assistance of counsel claim in post-conviction than going to trial in 4 months on a case that's got 70 counts, and now they've added, a murder count. That's just there. I don't even know if all the discovery will be in. I don't even know if all of the digital examination, all the forensic examination through FDLE will be done. So yeah, she's absolutely right. The judge did the right thing. This is going to take some time. If this case is, barring a plea resolution and demanding speedy trial, I can't imagine this case going to trial within the next 2 years. There's all these other, even that would be a little fast, I think. That's a big circuit. That's a big community. This is the biggest case probably to come out of Kissimmee in a while. Don't confuse Kissimmee with Orlando. It's a little bit of an offshoot of Orlando, but I just think it's just too much material to for any team to get through. And plus, depending on who the witnesses are in the case, if he's with the public defender's office, if there's any witness that's been prior represented by the public defender's office, they now have a conflict. So now they have to find competent death penalty qualified counsel if they're seeking death to take this case on. And so those delays, although are frustrating to the victim's family, they're unavoidable. We can't convict people without following the rules. That's a little bit of what Tim has been talking about when he provides content and narrative about the Trump cases. Like them, hate them, you have to follow the rules. I'm certainly not comparing our former president to this guy. I'm just saying there's just an overalized generalization that there should be a rush to judgment. And it doesn't matter who you are, you have to be able to, everybody deserves the same rights afforded to them under our Constitution.
Mama Bear here, he thought he was smart by resetting his phone, which he did. He did a factory reset, he told law enforcement officers. So happy that law enforcement was smart enough to go right in the phone. Monica, I mean, how advanced is forensic, digital forensic work now? They obviously work right around that, right?
Listen, those guys are so smart. I don't even know how to factory reset my phone, but those guys will find every picture you thought you lost because your phone fell in the toilet. Those guys will find it, and it is never, at least in my 30 years of experience and having a phone with a camera since the early 2000s, it has never been to our benefit when they find more photographs on the phone.
That's a good way to put it. So Belkis, to you on this from Jay. So this is an interesting question. Is he in fact now facing two separate trials, one for the sex assault and then one for murder? Or are these going to be merged together now? Is that the way it'll be done?
It's going to be up to the state. They could try them separately. They're separate incidents. Each count of his 60 plus sex charges are their own things. They consolidated them by putting them all together, although they're all separate incidents. They might, I would imagine that to tell the full story beginning to end, they might consolidate the charges together into one case, but we will see.
Joel, you need to cancel all future Jewish holidays. We can't go without our STS doing daily shows. Just saying, I will have to speak to a higher authority. That would be my wife about that, and see what she says. But I don't think it's going to fly. Like I said, I'm off for a day or two, and I feel like I've been gone for 6 months. My timing, everything is off. Tim Jansen, it's good to have him here to keep me, in check. But he faces 60 charges of possession of all this bad stuff. I'm not going to say it because it's not good to say. But it comes down, Tim, one of the local Orlando stations basically crunched the numbers, and they believe it comes out to about 400 photos on his phone and laptop. We don't know if these are all Maddie, just a small percentage are Maddie, but what are they doing right now with all these images? I mean, the sad thing is someone's got to actually look at these. But what do you do with all those images? Do you have to go back and figure out, like, reverse digital forensic engineering to figure out where they were posted? I mean, walk us through this part of the investigation.
Yeah, first they're going to try to make sure they can identify them as a real person. Okay, so they're going to have to figure out that they're an actual real person. And they got children in ICAP. They got places where they have children's names and their pictures that are already been used. These people share these pictures. And so they're swapping them back and forth. The child pornography law enforcement, they're very dedicated, very good. They got to come up with an age for the child, right? They're charging with capital, so it's got to be under 12. And then usually a doctor can come in and take a look at the genitals or the breasts and kind of tell the age of the young child. But no, as a defense lawyer, I am not allowed to get the pictures, right? I can't even in discovery see them, or they can't send it to me. I have to physically go to law enforcement, sit there with this computer guy who sits there and looks at pornographic materials every day. You have to sit there and look at this disgusting stuff. You have to look at every count to make sure they have it. And you got to look at it, and, there's no small talk with the agent. They usually say things that are, disgusting, and quite naturally, some of the stuff you see is disgusting. You try to keep it professional. And it's horrible. And you go back to your client and say, hey, listen, I'm looking at this material. I've seen it. It's clearly illegal. The child is underage. I can't defend it. I think we need to work out a resolution. What are you willing to take? And let me go back to the prosecutor. Do you have any information on other people doing this who are making movies that maybe you can lessen your sentence? But it's a bad scenario. The whole thing is bad, but the penalties are so tough. They're really tough. And I've got like a 19-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, and they go on this thing and they get child pornography and got 1 or 2 counts. And they may not be a pedophile, but they're curious and they get on a website and now they're looking a child pornographer, a child sexually for the rest of his life. And they're 18 years old. And those are the hard cases because this is not a 50-year-old guy, that's trying to pick up a 12-year-old. We all know what's going to happen to that person. And that's the person they should be getting. But when you get an 18-year-old kid who's stupid, high, drunk, going on a website and gets on another website and sees thinks they're of age, but they're really 15 or 16, and then he sends them to his friends, he's doing the same thing. And he could be a sex offender for the rest of his life. And that's where the courts have a hard time deciding who is a danger, who needs to be punished for the rest of their life. And it's not easy as a defense lawyer to convince a prosecutor that this 18-year-old kid deserves a second chance when the prosecutor sees child pornography on their phone.
As the father of 2 young girls and a boy, this is a kind of story that makes you just question the world and makes you scared as hell. But Jenny Price to Belkey's, how dare he think of pleading not guilty? I mean, right now he hasn't appeared in court. The material is enough to do it. Why would his lawyer not be like, cop to it so your images stay private? Belkey's, there are people in the chat saying there's no way this goes to trial. Do you think that there's a chance because of the humiliation also involved in it? It seems like he is, he wouldn't, I don't think he'd be waiving his rights to appear every time if he was not humiliated in some manner by this, or maybe there's something else at play. But is there a chance this just never goes to trial and this guy just, escapes the death penalty by pleading guilty and, you dot your I's, cross your T's, the state has its case and he goes away for life?
Yes, it's possible he never goes to trial. It's but how dare he plead not guilty? That's how our system works, right? Right now there is an allegation before us. Nothing has been presented. He doesn't get anything right now. All they say is we're charging you with this crime. In order for his attorney to do what Tim is saying, to see the things, to look at them, to consult with your client and advise them, discovery has to take place. That only takes place if we enter a plea of not guilty. We file a notice of discovery. They give it to us. We have to make appointments sometimes with federal agents to review the material. Then we go back to our client, so there is a process that has to happen. But I have had cases that were complete slam dunks for the state and we went to trial, and so our client is the one who makes the decisions. No matter how we feel or what we advise or, how bad we think a case is, we have to do what they want, even if it's not probably in their best interest.
By the way, again, for those who missed it earlier on, tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, there was a 5th misfit charged in the murder of 2 moms in Oklahoma. They are Kansas moms murdered in Oklahoma. Our panel tomorrow, I'm telling you, you're going to want to see Jim Fuda and Jim Van Allen. And we also have Michaela, who's a private investigator in Oklahoma, joining us at 12:30 p.m. And then at 7, we are doing Rachel Morin. Scott and Phil of Great Scott, your True Crime Phil, they're at a symposium this week being run by the great Scott Duffy. So we thought we would do something different. We talk about true crime nonstop. It can get to people. Let's put it that way. It gets to me. So this Friday, we opted to ask STS anything. And I've got a picture of me, a picture of Carm, the COE, and Steve Cohen, who is rarely seen, but he is behind the scenes. And you can ask us anything. I don't know if I'll answer anything, but we'll do that, I think, like 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time. Can be true crime related. It can be whatever you want. Karma's going to complain. The COE was annoyed with me yesterday and said, do it on your own. But we'll get everyone there. We will get everyone there because it can't just be me. So the COE will get herself there if I have to make sure of it in a very nice way. Webpan, will he get the Tim Jansen? Can you clarify this? So there's a law in the books. They want to know, will he get the unalive penalty on the murder case with the new Florida laws related to abused minors? It's not, the law is not in effect for this person. Is that right? But it is moving forward?
No, they legislature passed it. And you can get the death penalty for capital sexual battery now. And in fact, I've got clients who were charged earlier before it became law, and they indicted them in the grand jury per this law, even though they said they're not seeking the death because they felt they had to do the procedural indictment for capital sexual battery. These are horrible cases. And usually the family doesn't have the funds to defend them. And you end up getting, and I can tell you most times it's a stepchild, stepdaughter. The red flag, no stepdaughter should ever sleep with the mother's new husband. That's a red flag. Never in the same bed, never in the same room. That leads to all kinds of creepy stuff in the middle of the night. Temptation for some of these people is overwhelming, and you have naive children, and you sometimes have wives, mothers who turn the other way for financial reasons, drug reasons, or just basic incompetence.
I was actually speaking to a therapist who specializes in this, and it was kind of eerie. He was telling me it's a lot more people than you think who have these impulses. They don't act on them, but as part of their therapy, they're forced to go and be in front of young children to show themselves that they're not going to act on these impulses. And I'm asking the therapist, how do they know that they're not going to act on it? It's a very, very slippery slope. It made me, I don't know.
Joe, you know, they actually have where they put these people in front of young children, and they put things on their penises to determine whether or not they get excited by seeing young children. And this is a type of therapy that is out there, and punishment.
I had never heard of that, and don't think I want to know more about it. But curious, you know, it is, I guess it's just a compulsion that some of these people simply cannot control. But when I heard that they purposely put them in front of young children, that's to try to help them with their therapy, that got me nervous, got me a little on the anxious side. Ida Shaw, JD, friend of the show here, for Belkey's and Tim here. Have you ever had a case, we've kind of talked about this, you simply could not stomach and turn down? Belkey's, was there something presented to you where you said, no way, I just cannot do this?
Yes. So as a former public defender, I didn't have that choice. When I worked at the PD's office, I exclusively did sex crimes for about 2 years. I would be sick, you know, with some of the information that I got. And now in private practice, we get those cases as well. And yes, I have turned down cases. Just real quick, I had a father who called who was charged with having sex with his daughter, and his wife was on his side because the little girl was being promiscuous with other girls. And in order to make her straight, the father had sex with the daughter with the mother's permission. And he wanted me to defend him. And I couldn't do it.
I don't blame you. I don't think I'd be able to do it. Lindsay Shea here. Love your show with Silver Linings. Silver Linings podcast is a podcast by Adam Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, and Uncle Rex Connor. Carm and I were guests on that show. It's all about optimism and obviously finding a silver lining in a horrible situation. And Carm was unleashed on Adam and Uncle Rex, and it was a fun episode. So if you want, check that out. I think I put it on my socials. Surviving the Survivor on Instagram, it's at Surviving the Survivor, and on Twitter at Podcast STS. And this, what's up with the Boston cult? We are going to be covering the Karen Reed trial. I have to be honest, I have no idea what to think about. I haven't had enough time to really dig down on it, but I've never seen a case this divisive. Opening statements are set for Monday. We're going to be covering it on this channel, and I'm going to do my best to be as uninvolved in shows as possible, because if you say one thing, you've got an army of people that hate you, and if you say another thing, another army of people that hate you. It's a lose-lose. But I'm very curious about this trial, and maybe we'll stick Monica Jordan on this because she can take the heat and have her examine it. But if anyone has good reading material as it relates to Karen Read, Surviving the Survivor at gmail.com, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. The jury has been selected. Why are opening statements Monday? That's 3 business days away. I have no idea, but opening statements will be on Monday. We'll have it live here on STS on this channel. So bring like one of those riot gear helmets. You're going to need it because everyone is constantly taking shots at people on the other side in this case. So another interesting piece of news in this case is Stephan Sterns. He took a ride. He was being transferred from the Orange County jail to the Osceola County jail. He was booked on these sexual battery charges. And he spoke to the deputy about conditions inside the jail, including his thoughts on cough drops and his thoughts on music. And here's a little bit of this. The COE put it together. Let's look at this guy and try to get a read on him from this transport. This is body cam footage and van footage of the transport.
Could regulate sleeping on bare metal. The first night I was on a concrete floor with a roll of toilet paper for a pillow. Nothing else. Even for a blanket or a pad to sleep on for like 2 days. I think they were supposed to do something like that.
What kind of music you like? You like classical music? Huh. You're the first person that's ever said classical music. But classical music, wow.
Sometimes have trouble remembering the names of the tracks.
Sheriff's deputy couldn't believe he likes classical music. Monica, you're a studier of human behavior. What do you make of that short, sweet exchange? He's not happy about the jail conditions.
Well, they use that to make him look like more of a not a victim. I was going to say asshole, but you guys always get mad at me when I cuss. So it makes the guy look. It makes the guy look bad when he's like, "Oh, woe is me," I don't have a nice, Serta mattress, and my pillow's not good, and the toilet paper's hard. So I don't like that. But what I sometimes think that the government is doing, law enforcement, is they're getting him talking so that if there is a mental health component later, they're like, oh, no, look, he's fine. He likes music and he likes, classical music. And so they would shove that down our throat if we ever had him evaluated to show that there was a mental health issue or an incompetence issue. I'm sure that video was much longer and
27 minutes.
Right. And so I'm sure there's a lot of stuff on there. If there was anything good for us meaning the defense, we wouldn't see it. But if, like somebody just wrote, Maddie didn't have a pillow or a blanket. They're absolutely right. So when he's whining about that stuff, and I do call it whining because it's like you can't read the room. It's like, read the room, dude. You're being charged with capital murder, capital sexual battery, 12 times, child porn. It is not endearing to anybody to hear him complain about his conditions. That is not to say that the conditions that which they are housed in are not probably deplorable and awful, but just read the room, man. This is not, you're not going to get any sympathy here based on the charges you have. And I think it does more harm than good and ingratiating the defense's side to the government.
And Canine Catherine is not just any person. She comes to us from Maui and is one of the OG STS.
Yeah, that's what I was citing.
Yeah, and she said Maddie doesn't get a pillow, blanket, or music. Kim Princess, and this is a guy, until Monica said this, I had no idea, but Belkey's, why is the officer even talking to him? Is there something to what Monica was just saying maybe they said, hey, talk to this guy so we can play this back.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know at what point that I think you said Orange County to Osceola,
Correct.
but I don't know, what had happened at that point, what their conversation is about, if they're just going to let him start talking and see what he's willing to say and give up, if he's waived Miranda, or decides to have a conversation with an officer and then engage, who knows what the reason was behind it. But it does open the door to issues for the defense if you're trying to bring up things in the future as mitigators, especially if you're, mental health is your only possible argument or something, and they have this footage where he's having a rational conversation with this officer, and then if he tries to change it up later on down the line, this is going to come back to bite him.
If I could just add one thing, they shouldn't be asking him questions, but Tim and I've had this experience before on cases we've worked together and also individually. Some of the worst evidence are those recorded jail calls where we scream and yell and beg our clients not to talk about the case on the phone. Please don't get in the transport van and scream out the window to your co-defendant, whatever idiot thing they're saying. We tell them this all the time for this exact reason, what you're seeing on this video. He looks lucid. He looks coherent. He's not talking about butterflies and rabbits and, Alice in Wonderland. So all of that stuff is going to not be beneficial to him. But no matter how many times we try and tell them, please don't say something on the phone. Please don't say something in the transport van. We see it. And we see it with the jury sitting there, and it never typically is never in our favor.
But Monica, he probably wasn't even given a lawyer yet.
Right.
He's being transported, and there's
it's
a
little
reason
tricky on their part. I think that's a little, it's a little tricky on their part.
It is tricky, and the thing is that partition was open for a reason. Mm-hmm. He's in custody. So the officer can't question him or initiate questions because that would be a custodial interrogation. But the officer's driving for 27 minutes. He's just driving, listening to him. And he responds to him. And he's trying to get him to talk, say something. The recording is going on. And he's trying to be friendly with this guy. And most oftentimes, it really hurts the defendant. Never helps.
Yeah. Rosemary Romero, always with good questions. And this is exactly what we're talking about, Belkis. But could the defense, I think this is the Canadian in her with the spelling, try and use an insanity defense for Sterns? Will they climb that wall and say, look, this guy's just crazy? But as we just saw, he seems very lucid, very coherent.
Yeah. Based on what we have right now, I don't see that they would have any grounds to pursue that. Could they? Sure. Are they going to have him evaluated? I'm certain. To hopefully gather something for mitigation purposes. But people, think about the insanity defense and think like, oh, I can just bring up the insanity defense and like, I'm good. It is very difficult to get doctors to agree with that, and not only your doctors, the state of Florida gets their doctors. And so that is a very, tough hill to climb. It's not just, this is what I'm going to do. And like, that's it. But, I don't know that it's realistic that that's going to be something that's explored with Mr. Sterns.
He really doesn't have an insanity defense. He committed the crime. He tried to cover it up. He buried the body. He came in and did interviews. He watched the wife do interviews. He did everything to cover his trail. There's no insanity defense. And you're not going to find any respected forensic psychiatrist to come in and say, this guy obviously didn't know what he was doing was wrong. He won't have a license or a reputation again.
Look at this. Holy moly, Mind of Monsters. This is from the COE. You put up a billboard for Ellen Greenberg. This is why I say best guest, better community. Mind of Monsters has been a member of our community and does her own podcasting, her own work. Yes, I did. It ran today for the first day. I emailed you mine, so just email me back. I would love to see a picture. Even maybe we can get it up. There you go. We'll share at the end of the show. Great minds think alike, COE. So, by the way, you guys all know the COE's nickname is Bugs. And so I always want to call her Bugs because that's my, that's my instinct, but she goes by the notorious COE. So there you go. By the way, so when it came to jail, if you couldn't hear it well, he says you couldn't regulate sleeping on bare metal. The first night I was on a concrete floor using toilet paper for a pillow. That's one thing he says. Then during the ride up, the deputy asked Sterns if the temperature in the vehicle is okay. So he's obviously trying to warm him up a little bit. And another moment, the two share a brief conversation about cough drops. What they say exactly, I do not know. And then the officer tells Stephan Sterns that he's being booked on these two arrest warrants. And then the vehicle pulls up and you hear reporters screaming questions at him, which he does not answer. We'll end with the timeline. I just want to get Monica's take on this specifically because she is the investigator in the group. But Monica, the Sunday, February 25th really kicks off the timeline. I wish I had a graphic up for this, but this was Maddie Soto's birthday. Her 13th birthday was on the 25th. And then on the 26th, well, before I get to the 26th, the quote from her mom that day, and her mom was not at her birthday, says, she was so happy. She showed us all her gifts. She's just a happy girl. And she showed it on Sunday when she went to bed. She was so happy. And then the next day, Madeline Soto is allegedly last seen at 8:30 a.m., but never makes it to school. People think they see her being transported in Stephan Sterns' vehicle and actually think that she's deceased at that point. Talk to me about the timeline here, how important this is going to be to piece this timeline together. Stephan Sterns is also seen that day throwing a backpack and a laptop into a dumpster. How important is all of this in terms of, building the case for the state and for the defense to have to knock it all down?
Well, I can look at it in two ways. For the government side, showing, like I said earlier, we're videoed or video surveilled about 75 times in a day. They're going to be going through all of that information. You're going to find him. There's going to be more information coming out about what he was doing throughout the day. The fact that he's throwing this stuff in the dumpster and it's retrieved goes to show that he's trying to hide his guilt. From the defense side, I would probably try and argue once we had him evaluated that he's probably potentially intellectually disabled, because that sounds like the stupidest idea ever, and something a 12-year-old would do is to throw, I'm going to throw it in the garbage can. Like, that's just, I mean, I don't think anything he's done rises to the level of insanity or incompetence based on a mental defect, but he may be intellectually disabled. He may have brain damage. He may have some other things that the defense can work with. But as far as the timeline, it will all become laser focused once we figure out if the 7 counts or the 12 counts of sexual battery on a minor are her. Because as a woman, and even Tim knows this, having daughters, I have a daughter, 13 is a kind of coming of age birthday. And, I don't know if she's started her period. Maybe he's worried that the other times he had sex with her. Who knows? I mean, I don't even know what's in the autopsy yet. But there's so many other things that have, just because they've indicted him does not mean they are done. They are still loading the weapons to come after him. And they have probably a treasure trove of additional information to really, secure a strong prosecution and ultimately get a conviction.
And Monica, by the way, he supposedly was employed in one way or another through Disney World. I think he was outsourced to Epcot or something, which is disturbing considering the allegations against him. Annie K here, kind of coupled with that, how far back time-wise will this investigation go to cover patterns of SA of kids? I mean, how far back do they have to look at this? I mean, they have to go back 10 years.
They'll go forever. They will keep going. They'll keep going to find out when he was an adolescent, if he was touching the neighbor kids, if he was touching the dog or the cat. I mean,
Yeah, he has friends who have already come out who said that he had this predilection to young girls, even as a young guy, as a teenager.
Oh,
Like,
well, there's nothing like your friends coming out and telling the world what you like.
yeah, your friends.
Friends
So
indeed.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, just because they've indicted him, that's just like the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so much more information that they're gonna, load on him. But I mean, when you say he's working at Disney, is he emptying the trash or is he, changing light bulbs? I mean, there's like a bazillion light bulbs there. I mean, he doesn't have to be a Mensa candidate to be evil.
Hopefully he's not Goofy or Mickey. Let's hope that.
Oh, good God.
From I never know. Is this supposed to be doctor, and what is this?
Yeah,
Belky,
I think
help
it's
me out
Dr.
here.
Latina because it says as a practicing MD.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. I see Belky's took care of me right there. As a practicing MD, watching his behavior in videos, he does not present as cognitively impaired. Rather, he presents a canny, sly, shrewd, and mercurial. I like these words. Good SAT words. Dr. Latina. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. This is my Latina wife. Tim J, these are some random questions here, but Belkys, once he is found guilty, assuming that he is, or if there's even a trial, let's say he goes to prison, is he ever going to be allowed in Gen Pop? We're getting way ahead of ourselves, but people like to ask this question.
Where else would he go?
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
And Monica, if he's in Gen Pop, what's the chance of him getting shanked for being a chomo?
90%.
Yeah, large. I mean,
Monica, let me ask you a question this way. What would your friend Luis Rivera, who's a convicted, I guess, killer, who's in federal prison and part of the Latin King gang who have a very strong street code, what would Luis think of a guy like this?
you probably shouldn't ever talk to Luis because Luis will let him know exactly how he feels about him. The Latin Kings are very, very clear about how they feel about homosexuality, whether you agree with it or not. They have their own code of conduct, and you better not talk to a Latin King if you're, a child molester or a law enforcement or homosexual. I
get upset because Monica says Luis Rivera would never, ever be friends with me. I would like to think that he might be, but I guess the sad fact is that, by the way, I was in his old hood, Monica. I thought of you the other day. Blackwood Orr says, I am 1 in 5. Someone you know is an unsafe adult. Think about it. Not sure.
I'm with 4 adults right now. Which one of you is unsafe?
I think we know.
I think we know him.
It's I don't know, kind of crazy. Belkys, to you on this one. This is in the affidavit that Stephan Sterns was, according to the affidavit, in a position of familial or custodial authority. What does that mean legally?
So he had a relationship more so than just like your typical relationship. So custodial is the relationship between him being like a parental figure or a authority figure in her life because of the relationship with mom. And so what that means for his relationship with her.
Thank you to Roxanne for vouching for me. So this final, this is from the affidavit. It also remains unclear exactly how many images Sterns was allegedly in possession of, but each count says he was in possession, this is the affidavit part, of 10 or more images. That means, this is how we get to this 400 number, that means he could have been in possession of at least 400 images of any form of child pornography. It's interesting because a lot of people in Joel is still upset Luis declined his Friendster request. Yes, I am. But I saw a lot of people in the chat saying that in Europe and other places, they do not refer to it as child pornography. I guess the word pornography sort of implies willfulness, and it's definitely not the case here. But Tim, just back to this, I asked Monica about it. 400 images, that's a hell of a lot of images. And I assume that they are parsing through everything right now. And as Monica said, they're going to go back as far as they need to go to try to piece this together. I mean, how long could this investigation potentially go on for, Tim Jansen?
It's going to go on until they find another victim. They don't need more charges against this person, but they want to see if there's other victims or anybody helped him. Who knows if he had another stepdaughter in his life. A lot of these people that molest kids usually have been molested themselves. 400 images to you and I seems like a lot, but I can tell you we've seen a heck of a lot more. The custodial relationship is an enhanced penalty in the guidelines for this person. Everything is going against him. And, it's going to be a slam dunk. The really only question in this whole case is going to be, is the wife going to be charged? What did she do? Could she have prevented this? And what are they going to do with the wife? That's really the only thing I'm concerned at this point. What about the wife?
Look at this, right on cue from Roxanne A. An amazing panel. I tell everybody it'll be the fastest 90 minutes of your life. Today was sort of the fastest 90 minutes. All my fault because I'm coming back from a day or two off. God forbid I actually take a look. By the way, someone said, hey, when you're on the book tour, going on the book tour May 15th-ish, roughly. So someone said, hey, Tim Jansen's got to jump in. Hopefully Tim will pick up a few shows. We're going to do some recorded shows, the COE. Depending on if she's happy or mad at me, she will jump in. Maybe we'll get Belkis Plata. Maybe we'll get Monica Jordan. Maybe they will all jump in as guest hosts. But Belkis Plata is a hell of an attorney out of Jacksonville, Florida. She's done it all. She was in the public defender's office. And most importantly, she's from my dad, may he rest in peace, from his home city of the Bronx, New York, the famous home of the zoo. Belkis, I think I told you this story. As a young kid, my dad, he was always stressed about work, kind of like yours truly. And so he promised me eventually he would take me to the Bronx Zoo. And then he finally took me, and it was after Thanksgiving, and every single cage had a sign on it, or every, whatever you call it, exhibit, saying that the animals were shipped to Florida for the winter. And I got to see squirrels and pigeons. And my dad was like, wasn't that cool? And I said, that was awesome. So that's my memory of the Bronx Zoo. Belkis, everyone is asking, what about the mother? That is a $64,000 question. Where do we go from here with her, and your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my best guess is something is coming for the mother. Like Tim said earlier, like when people are like, why did it take so long for him to get indicted on murder? He was in custody. They want to have their ducks in a row. They're not going to jump the gun when they have someone already in custody. Because once they arrest someone, the clock starts ticking. We have speedy trial rules. And so, they want to make sure that they have everything that they need. I imagine they're watching mom to see where she's at and what she's doing, but they want to make sure that they have all the evidence that they need before they arrest her for something, if that's what they ultimately decide. But I mean, I think at a minimum, there's a child neglect situation here. We don't know if she's complicit in what happened to Maddie and ultimately, him taking her life. But I think there's going to be something for mom at some point.
I don't mean to cover up Monica. I will uncover her in a moment. But look at this, Kim Princess, Queens, New York here. If you look, May 19th, we're going to be in New York City at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. Please come and say hello to us. This is the book tour, all fixed up. Tallahassee. Monica, are you coming to this in Tallahassee on June 6th?
Well, I was just looking at that. I had no idea I wasn't invited.
Says best guest attorney Tim Jansen, but Monica, you are a guest of honor. And Belkis, it's not that far. How far is a ride from Jacksonville to?
It's 2 hours.
2 hours, a boring 2-hour drive, but 2 hours.
Belkis, you and Shannon should come, and you can listen to our podcast. It'll be the fastest drive of your life.
Joel, I wanted to add something that Tim and Belkis know, and that is, when they do those forensic evaluations of those images, they can tell you how many times the image was opened, whether it was deleted and re-added, like re-downloaded. They can tell you how long the image was looked at. So when you're talking about, there's 400 images, it's not only the number of images, but they can get all of that metadata and all of that additional information. And when you have a picture that a prosecutor has an expert on the stand that can say, our client pulled that image up 36 times in 1 week and looked at it for, one time for 12 seconds, one time for 12 minutes. That's really compelling, because when your defense is, oh my gosh, how'd this stuff get on my computer? that doesn't really work much as a defense. And it's, when I talk about this forensic technology and what they're able to like screen grab, and it is overwhelming, and it is typically does not benefit the defense.
By the way, someone said no Orlando. Well, I'll definitely be coming to Orlando, probably late summer, fall. And someone said no Ireland. Well, the UK has got CrimeCon.
We should go there.
Yeah,
Yes.
Tim, Monica, and Belkys are on board for that one. But
we're on board for the Ireland tour.
There is a CrimeCon in the UK at the beginning of September. I'm trying to convince the COE. DC definitely coming to as well. Philly, I'll be there. New York City, I'll be there. RIP, beautiful Madeline. Monica Jordan, what can you say about her? She is the president of Jordan Research and Consulting, handled more than 50 death penalty trials. She worked on the post-conviction team for Eileen Wuornos, the infamous Florida female serial killer. Monica, you sort of just said it, but your final thoughts on this. And again, people want to know about the mom. Will they get to the bottom of it with the mom?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even if they charge her with child neglect because she should have known something was going on, it'll be a way to, lasso him further. I don't see the mom walking away from this with nothing.
No.
By the way, look at this. This is why I always say best guest, better community. What's the weight up there?
Oh, she's
This
so
is
beautiful.
a billboard that just went up for Ellen Greenberg. I need to get Monica involved in this somehow. Monica stabbed.
I like this
20
case.
times.
I always told you that wasn't suicide.
No, it's crazy. There's a killer on the loose. We think we know who that killer is.
We know who it is.
Yes, we just need to get to the bottom of it. A lot of corruption here. If someone happens to pass this actual billboard, get us a shot. Our Philly people, send it to survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. Got to solve this case. This case is crazy. Call Josh Shapiro. Text him. Call him. 717-787-3391. 717-787-3391. He is the governor. Get him to act on this. And we're also trying to do something on May 24th when we're in Philly with Ellen Greenberg's case. You can email me if you have ideas, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. Tim Jansen, the final person we have to say goodbye to. He is a partner in the firm that bears his name, Jansen Davis. He has done it all. He was also a federal prosecutor for 5 years in Tally and Tampa, and a stand-up guy who happened to inherit a very cool car recently that I'm jealous of. Tim Jansen, your final thought there.
Big news here. Windsor jumped in the water fountain, so he couldn't make an appearance on the show tonight. This is after the wife had all the carpets cleaned in the house. So I'm afraid to leave my den to see what's going on out there. Sad case. I hate to see it. Hope the wife gets charged soon. Hope they both get life in prison. And we somehow stop these kind of crimes being committed on young children.
Well said, Tim. Thank you to this panel. Another amazing panel. Belkys, I think I asked you this last time, but is the flag up there, is that for someone in your family who served?
Yes.
It was. Well, thank you for their service. Like the flag. Tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to be doing the Oklahoma murders of these two moms who are from Kansas. A fifth person has been charged, and the panel at 12:30 tomorrow is a very, very, very strong panel, kind of like this panel. And then 7 o'clock tomorrow night, please support Rachel Morin's family. She was murdered the first weekend of August, and her killer has been identified through DNA, but there's no ID on the person, and they are still looking for him 8 months later. Please join to try to help catch this killer. And then Friday, I think 4 or 5 p.m., it'll be Ask STS Anything. Until then, love you, America. Love you, this panel. Love you, Tally. Love you, Jacksonville. And, of course, love you, Orlando. And let's keep Maddie Soto in our thoughts. What a horrific end to such a short life. See you tomorrow, everybody.